Hey, it's Doug Cunnington here from Niche Site Project. Today I'm going to talk about hiring writers and why people think it's hard to hire writers and that sort of thing.
Hey, it's Doug.
A lot of people do mention that like hiring freelancers is one of the more difficult things, and we read books or hear people talk about it being easy to hire people, like the 4-hour work week. Tim Ferriss talks about hiring a virtual assistant, a VA, and they can just take over tasks you don't want to do, and it sounds kind of easy. And I mean, a lot of stuff in the 4-hour work week is just sort of a simplified version. It's perfect to get you interested, to get you, I guess, willing to try out different things, but it is more difficult, and usually people, they're a little disappointed when they first try and hire. That's what I'm going to talk about today. I see we have quite a few people on already. So we have Falk, Eben, or Ben. I'm not sure even how to pronounce your name, but it looks like Eben, so I'll just call that. And doing well today, doing pretty good. We have John from San Antonio. Sahid, welcome. Yeah, let me know where you're from. And yeah, Eben's talking about, hiring writers is difficult, and a lot of times Eben has to redo big parts of content, which is frustrating. And it actually would be, Ben is good. We'll call you Ben. All right, that's easier. Ronit's on. And this topic today, I have like a list of topics, questions that people send in that I can go to. But I picked this one today because I published part 2 in the content series on Niche Site Project. There is a link in the description to the post, and there's also a webinar that I'm going to have this Thursday where I'll go a little deeper into just the hiring process. So be sure to check that out if you want to look at the training a little bit more closely and see hands-on stuff. And yeah, like I said, let me know where you're from if you're just joining up. Hopefully we'll have a few more people hop on here in a second. And Sahib says, I'm currently writing for a few affiliate marketers and SEO agencies. Is there a way to work with me? Interesting question. I'll come back to that in a bit. Leo's on. What's up? How's it going? And Ben's from Paris. Cool. Very cool. All right. Well, I'll start getting into it. And if you join late, whoever joins late can just rewind and hopefully catch this good story. So I'll start it with a brewing story. So I homebrew beer, and I have for a few years. Wow, it's like going on 10 years, which is a pretty long time. And it started, at the time, I actually had very low interest in brewing beer. I drank Coors Light and mainly, liquor drinks and stuff like that. I really didn't pay much attention to craft beer. It was getting, bigger, quite big by 2007. But basically my friend got a kit, and I happened to be the only single one at the time. And I had a house, and I had, sort of free reign to the kitchen, of course, since it was my house. And they were married and lived in apartments. So I had 2 friends come over, and my brother-in-law, who actually had a little experience, he brewed 1 batch of beer, so he kind of knew what to do. So he came over too, and we, made a mess in the kitchen. And I think we had 2 batches of beer going at the same time, which was kind of not the best thing to do. And we literally had 4 cooks in the kitchen trying to brew beer. We didn't quite know what to do, and there were one little story, there was a boil over, and basically what happens, you have sort of the sugary malty liquid that you're boiling during the the brew process, and there's hops in there and a few other items. But if you have the burner turned on too high, it can boil over. It's like if you're boiling pasta, if you stop paying attention and you have the burner on too high, it'll boil over. Similar idea, except this is like super sugary kind of stuff. So when it boils over, it's like super sticky. It's a huge pain to clean up. And that was the experience that we had. And that is probably one of the main reasons why we brewed at my place and no one else could brew at their apartment, because they'd make a mess and they were married and their wives would not be happy with them if they made a mess. So why am I telling you some story about me brewing? Well, over time, I brewed more and more. In fact, we brewed like 3 consecutive weekends. So we actually like brewed before, or we brewed again before we even got to try the first couple batches of beer, which was a good thing because the beer tasted terrible. It was really bad because we didn't know what we were doing. But over time, we got a little better. I think within the next year, like we entered some beers into like homebrew competitions. And then within 2 years, I became a beer judge, which was cool. And then, I started like winning like medals in competitions because I like worked at it. I brewed more and more batches and like really tried to refine the process that I was doing. So the reason why I'm telling you all this stuff is because hiring writers or VAs is really the same thing. When you first hire a VA, it's probably not going to work out how you think. You may have some images in your head of like how it may work out, how much easier your life is going to be when you hire a writer, but when you get the content back, it's not what you think it's going to be. Maybe it's not written as well as you thought. Maybe they don't even turn anything in. Maybe maybe you hired someone, you paid them, part of the money, and then they're late, and then they turn in, half the number of words that they're supposed to. And generally in life, when your expectations don't match up with reality, like you're disappointed. Like that's kind of the definition, or at least one working definition of being disappointed. And it could be, if you're going to head to the grocery store, and you think it's going to take like 15 minutes, like a normal day, like you're expecting that, your expectations are set for a short trip, and there's construction and it takes you forever. That's a disappointing situation. So I see if a few other people are in here as well. So cool. All right. And if you're just joining up, just let me know where you're at. Glad to have you on. So basically, hiring writers is the same way. There's a period where you have to like figure out how to do it and like what to do. You have to like work through just the issues that are going to come up. One of the things you can do just in general, online business or otherwise, is just expect that things aren't quite going to work out like you hoped. There's going to be some kind of challenge that comes up, something you don't expect. Maybe even, you've been working with a particular writer and they did a good job for a while, but then, they're out on vacation and they can't write for you anymore. So then you have to adjust, and that's really what it's about. And if you get frustrated, then you're going to run into issues. And everyone does get frustrated, even if you have brewed for many years. So yesterday I brewed a batch of beer, but I was I needed to like change a couple parts in my mash tun, which is where you put the grains and you let the mash happen. I won't go into too many beer details here, but basically I had a leak in a cooler that would be holding like 150 degree like water and mash, and there was a small like drip, a small leak. It wasn't sealed up all the way, and it kind of screwed up a good chunk of my day, because I thought I was going to wake up, start brewing, start having a good time in the morning, have some coffee, go on a walk, and like have this the mash going on. But it was leaking. So even though I tested and I worked ahead on Saturday, it actually was leaking when I did the test in the morning. So it cost me an hour, and I had to sit there, and I was actually pretty annoyed and pretty frustrated, but eventually it worked out. And again, I mentioned that because I've brewed a lot of beers over the last 10 years, and the cooler that I was using, I've brewed, dozens of batches in that. It hasn't leaked. It's been solid, but I had to replace a small part. And next thing I know, I'm like, cussing at this cooler because it's dripping water at it was a super slow rate. It was like 1 drip every 3 seconds or something, but it was enough that I needed to take care of it. So anyway, the point is, if you are thinking about hiring like a writer or any kind of virtual assistant, you should expect that it's going to be a little difficult at first. Like anytime you're learning something new, anytime you're developing a new skill, and I believe hiring people to work with you is a skill that takes time to develop, just like anything else. If you pick up a new musical instrument or a new hobby, it's going to be pretty rough at the beginning, and you should expect it. But over time, like, you'll understand that maybe you need to give better directions to your VA. Maybe it's the screening process. Maybe you need to hire better people. Maybe you need to pay more money. That's a big thing that I think people incorrectly assume, that the goal is to hire people at the cheapest rate they possibly can. Now, if your budget is low, well, that's a different story. You have other things to work on. Maybe you can't really outsource anything until you can afford it, or maybe you need to save up a little bit more before you try and hire people. But if you if you pay people a really low rate, it's probably not going to work out great for you. Some of the big things that I did to help, help the deliverables and help the VAs work with me, particularly writers, is to give really specific instructions, give them, a style guideline and other information that helps them write and create the content that I actually need. So if you give vague instructions, someone's going to have to either make a decision on what they think you want, or they're just going to have to guess, which I guess ends up being the same thing. But you may end up with something that doesn't match up at all with what you intended. So the more information you can give someone, the better. Like whether you're working with, a developer to work on a theme or some kind of WordPress something or other for you, or a writer who's creating, just a different kind of deliverable. So cool. I see Ronit's from Nepal. We have Ben says he loves beers. You worked on a craft beer subscription e-shop. Oh, that's cool. And then Mark says you found a good writing company for $6 for 1,000 words in bulk. And I would wonder how great that is, just because that is quite low. It's pretty cheap. I usually pay more than double that. But if it works for you, then that's a great rate. World Travel, what's up? Thanks for joining. You said you tried a VA years ago for your old business, but couldn't find a good service and didn't know where to find a good individual. You haven't tried hiring a writer because it seems difficult. Gotcha. So you should, if you're getting by without, hiring someone, that's fine. For me, being able to hire a writer really freed up my time, and it allowed me to grow some of my websites. And then hiring a good editor and content manager, that made it even better, because even if I had thousands of words of content written for me at a good rate and it looked good, I still would have to go in and format it and do some things like that. But if you have a content manager or editor that can format and draft everything in WordPress for you, really frees up your time. And World Travel, I would say You can try to check out a couple, follow the link in the description of this post, and you can see like the job listing that I use typically to get people in the door. And then of course there's a matter of, screening and finding like the right person to work with you. And it can, back to the point of my story, if you are just starting to hire people, it probably will be a little difficult. To be honest with you, it will be a little difficult, but the key thing is to like start small, start slow, hire one person, and then go from there. And I always forget to mention, but I see the good people that attend often have hit the like button. So if you're watching this and you got anything out of it, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button. It's the little thumbs up beneath the video, probably, most likely that is where it is. So yeah, world travel, I would say, check out the post. There are some good tips in there, and a lot of it is around, giving, if you started a new job and your boss didn't give you very specific instructions, which does happen in jobs all the time, you may sit around and not get much stuff done, particularly if you're, working an hourly or salary wages. Then you're getting paid as long as you're around there. So a lot of people will just sit around. But the thing is, you probably remember, hopefully, some jobs where they had good training, like off the bat. They told you what you were going to be working on. They told you how, and then they told you what to do if you had a question, and then they sent you on to do that task or that job. And that usually worked out a lot, or that usually works out a lot better than, if they just say, well, here's a lot of stuff that you can do, and good luck. Let me know what you come up with later. Usually everyone's a little disappointed when that scenario plays out. So anyway, that's my thoughts on hiring writers. The reason why it's hard is because it's a skill, and when you just get acquainted with like hiring people, with hiring writers, it's a skill that you haven't developed. You're not quite sure what to expect, and in your head you may have a more like romantic idea of like how well it's going to work out, all this free time that you're going to have. But a lot of times when when you're hiring people, no matter the task, no matter what they're working on, when you hire people, that's a new interface. You have to like communicate with someone, and the more people you hire, right? So let's think about it at scale. Let's say you want to hire, you think you want to hire 10 writers. All of a sudden you have to have at least 10 separate conversations going on. If you try to consolidate it somehow, like, it's probably not going to work out how you think. Everyone will have like a channel to speak with you, and every time you add another person on your team, it makes it a little more difficult, or at least there's more things to manage. So even if you get rid of the task of writing or whatever your VA is handling for you, you still have to work with them individually. So the work changes, and it may be less time and less effort overall, but it doesn't go away 100%. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't realize. They think they could just give someone a list of articles, for example, and then walk away and just have all that content done. You can get to that point, definitely, but you have to make sure your team's trained well. So cool. Any questions out there on hiring writers in particular? Okay, so XCNet says, where do you go to find a good writer? Me, personally, I go to Upwork. So I've been hiring people on Upwork for, I guess, 4 years, since I got started online. I have hired, I'm not sure if I'm in the hundreds, but I've spent a lot of money on Upwork. I've hired a lot of people. I've hired a lot of writers on Upwork, and that's where I go. Now, in the link below, like the part 2 in the content series. If you follow that, there are 3 vendors that I recommend. I've either used them specifically to test them out, or I've talked to multiple people that have used the service and were happy with it. So that is the Human Proof Designs content service, and there are links in the post. I'm pointing over here. You can't see it, but if you go to that link, you'll see it. So Human Proof Designs, and then the Hoth. The Hoth has a very good content service, and each one of these services is set up a little bit differently. So I would recommend that you do like a trial job if you're serious about like getting a decent amount of content written. I would do a trial job with each one of the services to see like how their process works and how you like it, because each one works a little bit differently, and you may prefer one over the other. If you're looking at potentially getting, say, 5 or 10 articles written, or maybe like 50 over the next several months, I would definitely recommend that you test out a service with just like one job, one article, see how it goes, and then grow from there. So yeah, the Hoth, Human Proof Designs, and then Content Refined. So check those out, and I think you may be able to find one that fits really well for you. And the benefit of using a service like that is you don't have to handle the HR of actually posting a job listing, filtering through the 5 to 10 or 20 people that will apply for your post, and then working with each one of those people individually. With the services, you literally do just provide like either a keyword or a title, and they write it, format it, and each of the services that I mentioned, they actually will draft the post in WordPress for you. So you have to give them your credentials, of course, but they'll go in, format everything, upload the images, do all the stuff that you need. And I mean, that's pretty much hands off. So those are places to check out, XCNet. And then Ben, the question is, how many do you hire for one good one? Okay, gotcha. So I usually hire like twice as many writers as I think that I need. And so usually I get like a 50% like conversion rate on like getting a good writer. Lately it's been better. I'll get like 75% of the writers are good. So if I hire 10 writers, for example, although I don't do that many, or let's say 8, let's make the math easy. If I hire 8 writers, I've been able to keep like 6 of them. So that's pretty good. And then World Travel says, how do you screen them before hiring? I do not. So I let them, I don't screen them specifically as far as like interviewing or anything like that. But what I do is I'll just look at their application, their proposal to my job, and just judge it from there. So the one like big advantage that I have is I've interviewed and like screened resumes for my previous corporate job. So I've looked at hundreds of resumes and interviewed like 100 people or more. I'm not sure. I should have kept track closer, but I've interviewed a lot of people on 30-minute to hour interviews. So I feel pretty comfortable just like going through and objectively, subjectively, like reviewing people's proposals, the resumes, and how they're communicating, and then hiring the few people that I want. And let's see. So overall, I just read their proposals and then pick the best X number that I need. Sometimes you're going to have to cut people loose and just not even try to work with them because there's so many good applicants. So at some point you have to draw the line and say, all right, I mean, there's 10 good ones, but I can only work with 5. So you just have to like pick the 5. World Travel follows up and says, do you pay them a partial amount before? So Upwork handles all of that. The money goes in escrow. So if I'm paying $20 for an article, then I would pay the $20 right when I hire them. It goes in escrow, and the money's not released to them until they submit the work and I approve it. So, you know, that is one of the big advantages of Upwork. They hold the money in escrow for you. There's a pretty solid process around it. And I have had issues where, you know, maybe the writer didn't submit something, or something was really poor, or was, yeah, I guess that's probably the two things. So either they didn't submit anything, or it was really poor, or they just stopped responding in that area of like not submitting anything. And I'll just let Upwork know, hey, this contractor stopped responding, you know, the money's stuck in escrow, and then they'll end the job for you, you get a refund. So it's all sort of facilitated for you by Upwork, and that's one of the main reasons I work with them. If I was gonna hire some individuals, say from like Craigslist or something, that's a viable option too. So you could hire people from Craigslist. You can do a couple things. What I would do is just pay them like 50% upfront, and then they don't get the other 50% until they finish and submit the job, or sorry, submit the deliverable to you, and then you pay them the rest when you're happy with it. So those would be sort of the things that I would look at there. But Upwork is easy because they handle all the stuff for you, and it's a marketplace. There's enough people on, you know, the supply and demand side. All right. And then Sahid says, hire slow, fire fast. And, you know, I hire fast too for writers, or at least the particular type of writers that I'm looking for in this context. I do hire pretty quickly. You know, I used to think I wanted to, or I tried to interview them and like have a short like Skype interview or something, but then I realized that took too much time, and a lot of times those people weren't prepared to actually do an interview, so a lot of them just seemed like bad. But I did realize if I write a good job listing, then you could just hire them based on what you see there. And the link to the services are in the post, which is, I'll go ahead and paste a link in the chat, but it is like halfway through the article, I think. And it's just like services that I recommend, and you can check those out there. And like I said, I mean, they do everything for you, and that, you know, that also means it's expensive. So, I mean, I hire people on Upwork because I'm comfortable doing it, and it is remarkably cheaper for the quality that I get compared to the services. So, I mean, I think I can hire writers at a lower rate because, you know, they have other incentives, like they can get good reviews from me, and I have, you know, a history of you know, providing good reviews. So they know if they work with me, they'll get good reviews, and later they'll be able to raise the rates. Where if you work with the service, it's, like I said, it's pretty much hands off. You give the service your keywords, and then it's posted on your site, or at least drafted up for you so you can publish it. So good question. So I put the link in there to the post. You can check that out. Thanks everyone for clicking the thumbs up. If you have, I like that. So if you haven't, I'd appreciate it if you do. So Ben says, what is the market price for a good writer? You pay $15 for 1,000 words, but you don't know if that's low or good. That's about what I pay. I think that's like a fair rate for like a competent writer. If you're able to find someone, or you need someone that is specifically skilled, say in homebrewing beer, you may have to pay them more because that's a particular skill. So if you're just looking for a general writer or someone who is competent enough to do research for you, then the $15 for 1,000 words, that's in the right range. Okay. John says, how do you get a VA to add in code for Amazon images? I don't necessarily do that. John says, do they have access to my Amazon login information? No, that would be bad. I would not give them that access. I have heard that there's like a capability to give a VA some sort of like just read-only access or something like that, but I've never experimented with it or anything like that. And then John says, I'm using Thrive Content Builder and don't think there is a plugin to add in the code. Yeah, so this is kind of a different issue. And one thing I would say is, it's more of a question. Why would you, you know what, sorry, I was gonna turn it around on you a little bit, but basically, if you're using Thrive Content Builder, that's cool. I think it's overkill. Personally, I think it's overkill for an affiliate site. Can you make cool looking pages and stuff? Sure. Is it necessary? No. Does it help your conversions? Maybe, but I think it'd be pretty hard to prove unless you did like an A/B testing situation. But my argument is, one, Thrive Content Builder is super slow and it is incredibly frustrating to use and I can't stand it. Is it good to build sales pages with? Yeah, definitely. I build sales pages with it, but I don't use it for affiliate sites. I think it's too much. You don't need it. I think it's just unnecessary. But if you find that it's working well for you, go with it. That's just my own personal opinion. And then as far as the images, so there are plugins. There's plugins like Easy Azon. There are other plugins like actually I don't recall the names, but there are routes that you can take to have your VA put in the Amazon images. But yeah, I'm not sure if there's a clean way to do it, and I don't know particularly. John, that's a good question. A lot of people are doing image stuff these days, asking image questions. Kat asks, what kind of article do you give the writers for the test job? Info or reviews? Both. Just whatever I need. So either one is fine. I have specific instructions for each one of those. Of course, the info, I mean, that's just kind of like an article that anyone can write. So the instructions aren't too specific there, but for the reviews, there's a specific template that I want them to follow. And then World Travel says, what can you use instead of Thrive Content Builder? Anything, but nothing, right? Just use your theme. So my argument is, and sorry, I wasn't clear, that's a good question, World Travel. And basically, I think there are some people that really like Thrive Content Builder, and then they're telling people, hey, you should build your sites with Thrive Content Builder because it could be formatted in a really beautiful way. And my argument is like simplicity is better than a really beautiful way to present the content. So my thought is, I mean, just have text on a simple background where the content is in the forefront, and you can have some images in there, but the things that I believe don't really matter that much are things like fancy buttons or like little pop-up things that may happen, say with like Thrive leads or something. Like that's not really necessary and potentially could be taking away from like the real goal of making affiliate sales through Amazon. assuming that's your goal. The other thing is, personally, like when I was analyzing some of my slow loading pages, they were pages that were using Thrive Content Builder. And when I simplified the page, I basically just copied and pasted all the content into a normal WordPress post and then took away the buttons. I was basically using it, Thrive Content Builder, for buttons and maybe some boxes, like content boxes around certain areas that I wanted to call out. When I removed that, the size of the page was reduced by like 45% or something like that, or maybe 60%. It was some significant amount. So it went from 5 megabytes or something to like 2, something big. And then the speed of the page, like the load speed, increased by like 56%, if I remember correctly. So as soon as I took out Thrive Content Builder and just used my normal theme, it loaded amazingly faster. Like, it was crazy. I couldn't believe how much slower Thrive Content Builder was. But when you look at how much bloated extra code was in there, it's not a surprise. Like I said, I use it for sales pages. There are certain things where Thrive does a really good job, but I only use it for places where there's not a good substitute. So anyway, what can you use instead of Thrive Content Builder? Anything. But what I'm trying to say is just use your theme. So, and Nick says, do I find products convert better with an Amazon image of the product or just a text link? You know what? I've never tested like in a clean way. For me, text converts better. So I mainly focus on text, and I don't actually worry too much about the images. So, but that's just my personal feeling. I haven't even tested it on my site very well. Ben asks, I have a rather new VA asking to work out of the platform to avoid the Upwork fee. What would you do? I would potentially, do that, but I would say if they're new with working with you and they don't have a good rapport with you yet, I would be hesitant. Like maybe you can in the future, but I think, you have some security working on Upwork through the platform. So like if that person flakes out, if this new VA flakes out, like you have some protection. But if you work off the platform, you have no protection. But I would be open. I have worked with people off of Upwork in the past. And it can be fine, but I do like Upwork's providing a good service, so I'm using them, and I'm happy to pay the extra fees. Okay, World Travel does say I don't like Thrive from what you've seen. So yeah, Thrive is like a very good it tries to be like an all-in-one solution, and certain things come along with that. And part of it is, an all-in-one solution is usually not going to be quite as efficient as, specific solutions for specific problems. And, the other thing is they have, monthly fees. So it can get expensive over time. And the more you're ingrained with Thrive, the harder it is to move from the platform. It's kind of like when the cable company is trying to get you to bundle your services and get a telephone, which, I mean, it's crazy. Like, who has a telephone? Who has like a landline anymore? Some people do, right? I understand why some people do, but when you're when you're getting like your wireless, your television, and like your telephone through one service, like they've roped you in and they, you know, they're giving you a good deal for a little while. But anyway, that's kind of what Thrive is like. They have a lot of stuff. They try and cover everything. And I'm not sure if they do anything great. And the people that tell you like how great Thrive is, right, go check. I'm 99% sure they're affiliates, right? Technically, I'm an affiliate too, but I obviously am a bad affiliate, and I'm very straightforward about the products, and let you know like the downfalls of the products. The thing is, if anyone is telling you, hey, Thrive Leads is the best thing ever, Thrive Content Builder is fantastic and it's so fast and blah, 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 they're all affiliates. So just remember, people have incentives for what they're telling you. So be sure you understand what people's incentives are. Part of it may be true, right? All of it may be true, but you have to remember, if they're getting a paycheck at the end of the day for recommending a product, then you have to remember that. Like I mentioned, the 3 services that I told you about, I tested them all, but I'm also an affiliate for them. And I tell you in the same breath, well, I guess I took a fresh breath there. I tell you in the same breath that I hire people from Upwork. I don't use those services. So they're good. They do a great job. They're hands off. It's a lot more expensive than hiring people yourself. So, okay, definitely getting on the soapbox today. I think I'm going to lose my voice or something. It doesn't feel powerful. I'm going to have to get closer to the mic here. All right, Sahib says, I'm using the Ultimate Azon theme for all your niche sites, or Genesis. Cool, yeah. That's a good theme. Exinet says wpcrafter.com has YouTube videos reviewing a lot of content builders. Cool. And I would say though, all content builders are probably going to have the same type of issues. They're probably going to be bloated. They'll probably be a little slow, at least to use from a usability standpoint. I mean, when you have a you know, WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get type content builder where you could do things like that. It's probably just going to be a little slower to work with, and I'd much prefer just have like a fast, like, you know, I just want to work within WordPress and have nothing laying on top of it. So, however, there are many solutions if, you know, you're a person who does want like a content builder type interface, then there's tons of solutions. I believe all of them will be, they're all going to suffer from the same like slow usability stuff. Let's see. And what do we got here? So World Travel says you don't like the recurring fees of Thrive either. And funny, short, slightly amusing story. So like I was trying to use Thrive Content Builder back in the day. I bought like just that like standalone piece of software. It's just a plugin, right? And I would open a ticket, right? I'd go to their forum and I'd open a ticket and try and figure out like why certain things were happening. And of course, what do they tell you? They're like, turn off all your other plugins and see if it works. It's probably a conflict between the plugins. And I'm like, that is not helpful. Like, that's not a solution, right? Like if there's a conflict and you're telling me I can't use, say, my backup plugin because it's conflicting with Thrive Content Builder, like the backup plugin's going to win every time. So their service, at least when I used it a couple of years ago, they were quick, but it wasn't particularly helpful because basically they just told you to turn off all your plugins and then figure out which one wasn't playing well with Thrive Content Builder and then turn it off, which is not really a solution for me. I mean, I guess it's tough. I don't run any sort of theme or plugin or anything like that. I don't have any of those from a customer service standpoint, but it must be really difficult because people come in with like weird themes. There's all sorts of different combinations of plugins that may conflict with each other. So it must be a really hard job for them. But from the customer perspective, I was like, that is worthless. So I stopped opening tickets. Okay. Nick says, you were going to say the same thing. Most marketers just push Thrive because they get 70% commissions from the product. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, most things, right? Like you have to look at every piece of information that you're getting and try and understand like what the incentive is from like where you're hearing that info. So some people are like really straightforward on, you know, certain pieces of like things that they're an affiliate for. Like Pat Flynn, for example, obviously stand-up guy, like, and he mentions, hey, you know, I'm an affiliate for these products. I just want to mention it. And one interesting thing that I hear, and I have a feeling some people don't understand 100%. So, for example, I'll give a quick example from Pat Flynn. So he recommends the lead pages, right? So he's like, hey, lead pages is great. He's like, I will mention, like, full disclosure, I'm an advisor for the company. And I have a feeling some people don't quite understand, not anyone here specifically, but that means he's like a part owner. Like he owns like points in the company because he's an advisor. And so he doesn't specifically necessarily get like affiliate commissions, though he may, right? He still may get affiliate commissions, but he also is a part owner of the company. So when you hear someone say, oh, I'm also an advisor for the company, just wanted to let you know, they're part of the ownership of the company. That's what that means. So let's see. And then Nick also mentions, not saying that I am pushing certain things I'm up front, but other guys you've seen push Thrive religiously. Yeah, there was one post I saw a little while back. I won't mention where, but basically it was like, oh, what are the best themes for Amazon affiliate sites? And the first 3 listed were Thrive, like a specific theme from Thrive, and then the other couple were just like some other big ones. And I was like, come on, seriously? Those 3 just happened to be the best ones, and they happen to be the ones from Thrive, and you guys are like friends with, I mean, come on, like it's a little much. So anyway, and maybe I just read too far into it, but I would have to think there are other themes that are pretty good too. Okay, last couple questions here. Oh, we have like 17 people on. That's awesome. And it seems like a lot of people have hit thumbs up. If you're still watching and you haven't hit the thumbs up yet, can you click that little thumb? I would really appreciate it. Okay, Sahid, how to contact you about the opportunity to work for you. I'm following your tutorials for a long time, and I believe blah, 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 blah. That's cool, Sahid. I'm not looking for anyone right now, but I appreciate your offer. That's kind of you to mention it, and I appreciate the support over the years. Okay, Ben says, how many articles do I write per website? How many articles do you write per website to get to 1,000 per month? I don't really look at it that way. And your revenue isn't necessarily a function of the number of articles. So what you're really asking is, how many articles should you focus on as you're launching your site to make $1,000 a month? I think you have to look at it, let's break it down a different way. So, and I'll tell you a couple examples. So first, the site that I sold for $235,000 was making about 10K a month before I joined in the project and became a partner there. And it had 45 pages and it was making 10K a month. So what it did have was a lot of backlinks. So I had a lot of backlinks. So the site itself actually got a lot of traffic with a sort of a small, modest number of pages. 45 isn't necessarily small, but it's probably less than we think when you hear about a 5-figure site, like 5-figure per month site. Okay, what I would focus on, Ben, is publishing content that you know can rank. For example, say 10 articles, and then I would focus on getting a lot of backlinks to just one of those 10 over the next work period. I'm not sure how long it would take you to do that. It depends on how hard you work on it in your approach. But I would say try and get 10 to 15 or 20 links to just one of those posts. Why? You can probably make $1,000 per month if you just rank one of those posts #1 for a term that, say, gets 500 to 1,300 searches per month. That could take you, and probably will take you, 8 to 12 months or so to get it to rank #1. Now, if let's say you publish the 10 posts, you get, say, 15 guest posts and backlinks to that one post in, we'll just say 6 weeks. Let's say you do it pretty fast, you do it in 6 weeks. That's a good time to go ahead and publish another 10 articles and do the same thing again. The point is, if you just rank one post, you could probably make a lot, like the $1,000 that you're talking about. So I would not focus on the number of articles, but more like making one article rank well and get traffic to that one article. The thing that I think some people make a mistake on is they might actually try and get a bunch of links to a bunch of different articles of that, say, first 10. So all of them, let's say all of the first 10 articles, right, they all rank #6. That's great, right? You'll probably get a little bit of traffic, but you would actually be better off if just one of those articles ranked #1 instead of 10 of them ranking #6. So I hope that makes sense and clears it up for you. Okay, last question here. Is Amazon shuts down an affiliate after 90 days? Is it better to add links after the site gets ranked and gets traffic, or do you add links from the start? Yeah, I guess I would just wait until you get a little bit of traffic and then, apply. So it doesn't matter a ton, but the thing is, like, you should be able to get sales. And by the way, it's not 90 days, it's 180 days. Like, if you go and do the work that's required to get the traffic to your site, and you have good content with well thought out buyers keywords, then it shouldn't be hard for you to, say, find, I mean, this is what is happening in the course right now, right? In 5-figure niche site, there are people that, brainstorm, they figured out the keywords, they're going to launch their sites, hopefully in the next week or two, right? If they're following along at the right process, and not falling behind, which can be difficult, I'll mention, then they'll be able to launch their site, they'll be able to get some content up and probably get traffic. A few people that actually were able to stick with the course week over week. It's okay if someone gets behind, by the way. People are busy, especially this time of year. A lot of people go on vacation and stuff. There's a lot of family time, which is understandable, but basically within 4 to 6 weeks, they'll start to get a little bit of traffic and even make like 1 or 2 sales. Now, it's not, they're not going to be able to quit their job right away, but when you start getting a little traffic to your site, you realize, hey, this may actually work. And then when you get a sale from some stranger on the internet who found your site and was interested in learning more about a specific product, and they purchased because you provided them with some good information, well then, I mean, you see the whole thing works, and it's just a matter of getting more people to your site. So, okay. And Sahid, last question. How many articles do you initially post on your Amazon niche site, including the homepage at launch? 11. Including the homepage, 11. If you count the other pages, it's more like 13. So you'd have like a contact page, disclaimer page, the homepage, and then 10 articles. So that's all you need, and then you can get started. All right, cool. Thanks everyone for coming today. It looks like we had a great session, so I appreciate it. I'm gonna rest my voice and hopefully be a little stronger tomorrow. Have a great day. We'll catch you then. See ya.